David, Fingal County Council Management have proposed rezoning an extra 11 pieces of land in Fingal from green belt to housing, and their plans are out for public consultation at the moment. I read the great article by Sonny Bean in Dublin Inquirer about this story last week, and you were quoted in that article. Can you start off by telling me, David, what you know of Fingal County Council's management's plans for these sites? And then can you tell me why you think the whole idea could be a bit dubious?
So effectively, we've been asked to do a calculation as to housing capacity on existing land, and to zone more land in order to make up any shortfall. And I suppose the first thing really is that we do need to address the challenge that existing zones and permitted land, that we have an increasing number of permissions which are not being acted on. And it's in the region of, I think 10,000 units. So we have a very large number of planning permissions nationwide which haven't been acted on. The residential zone land tax is supposed to help with that, but it doesn't seem to be having the impact just yet. So having taken that into account, I think we need to be bringing forward more measures in order to drive delivery of the houses which already have planning permission and servicing. So what the council then did was to do a comparison of the capacity of the remaining land, and to do that they relied on the residential zone land tax maps, as opposed to doing everything from scratch. And that's because the government gave them a very short time period within which to do it. And it does seem that in doing that they've omitted a number of types of permitted housing where the land has an existing developed use. I've found in particular two planning applications on the Blanchardstown shopping centre car parks for housing, which amount to 1,300 units, and they haven't been included in our calculation of available land. And so I've asked a question to say, can we get the full list of uncommenced planning permissions, which, because they have the land as an existing use, aren't subject to the tax. So when we get that back, we'll find out. Now, what the figure that we'd come up with, that the officials had come up with for the shortfall was 5,000 units. And of that, they're proposing that 2,500 would come from bringing forward the development of housing at Dunsink. And that had always been marked in our plan for housing, but it had been marked as a future development. And I never really clear why that was proposed when we introduced the current plan in 2023. So I'm very happy to see that being brought forward. And where it is, it's not actually on the top of the landfill. Obviously, it's not possible to build there, but that becomes the park, and the houses then are downhill from it. So I think that's really worthwhile, and it's I don't think we'd had any reason to not advance it as soon as possible. So I'm glad to see that happening. And then after that, they've proposed a kind of a scattering of different sites, and there's no indication of exactly why they proposed. And I'm quite concerned about the ones which are eating into greenbelt land or high immunity zoning. We have greenbelts between our towns for a reason, and we shouldn't be nibbling away at them. And that's the position that the planners always took, for many years. And I'm a bit surprised to see a different approach being proposed this time. But I would think that if we can identify, if we as a council can identify the land which has planning permission, and that we haven't listed yet, then we may be able to focus on the Dunsink development, and I think that is appropriate. And there are a few other kind of mixed-use areas which we should be encouraging development on, and the development of kind of a mixed employment and housing use. One that I proposed at the last development plan, and it was agreed, was Baldoyle Industrial Estate, which has got some very low density employment uses there. and large site with excellent access to public transport. It would be suited for housing and offices and so on.
Are you saying, David, that there's land in Fingal, like land that could fit thousands of homes, that has planning permission, but the council in this latest plan of theirs, the management, have kind of ignored them and they're giving you an extra 11 areas, even though there's already land that has planning permission, but they haven't used it yet? Is that the case? Is it?
Yeah, I don't want to criticize them too strongly, because they were asked to do a complicated task in a very short period of time by central government. And so what they did was they looked around and they said, okay, the residential zoned land tax analysis that we've done, we'll catch most of these, and it did. It's caught the areas, but it's also it's failed to catch what you might call redevelopment areas. So any land which has an existing use is exempt, is not covered by the tax. And so the Blanchardstown instance are 1,300 units in 2 planning permissions, and they simply haven't been caught, just because the council went about this in the most straightforward and quick way, because they were put under time pressure by central government. And what my question is, and I think I'm waiting for a reply to it, is I've found those 2. What other instances are there? And certainly, of the kind of 11 areas that you refer to, I think we at least half are not necessary, given we already have 1,300 units additional to add into our calculations. And then at the same time, we need to press central government to force the developers to build those, because we can't impose the zoned land tax on them. And I would think that the legislation is worth changing, so the zoned land tax would apply to existing planning permissions, even if there's an existing use. I don't think people should be getting large scale residential planning permissions and then sitting on them. And the developer has actually said that they're not planning to develop these in the short term, that they're holding off.
I'm just curious, because I live beside the area, although it is on the other side of Fingal to you and most Near FM listeners, but land in Barnhill in Clonsilla is included among the 11 sites the Fingal management have said for rezoning. But I was under the impression that a lot of work had already gone into trying to develop the land in Barnhill already. Did you know anything about this area, David?
I don't know enough to give you an informed answer, because obviously it's a different area committee, and so the councillors over from Dublin 15 would have a better handle.